So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the press conference of the European Union election follow-up mission to the Maldives 2025. I would like to start by introducing our team. Here in the center, we have our Chief of Mission, Mr. Nacho Sánchez Amor, the former Chief Observer of the European Union Election Observation Mission 2023 to the presidential elections and a member of the European Parliament. The election follow-up mission is also composed of two electoral experts. I am Michael Lidauer. I serve as political and electoral expert on this mission, and my colleague Smaranda Sandulescu is the legal and human rights expert on the election follow-up mission. Before I pass the floor to the Chief of Mission, I would like to inform that the event will be filmed and photographed, and for those in the audience who do not want to appear in the film and photos, there is a non-filming area in the back of the room. The presentation by Mr. Sánchez Amor will be followed by questions and answers, during which we invite the present journalists in the room to pose their questions. A press release will be available at the end of the event, both in English and Dhivehi. And now I would like to pass the floor to the EU election follow-up Chief of Mission, Mr. Nacho Sánchez Amor.
Thank you, Michael. Dear Ambassador Carmen Moreno, Ambassador of the European Union, dear David and other ambassadors, Madam, dear representative of the international community in Maldives, members of the media and friends. The European Union has deployed an electoral follow-up mission to the Maldives since the 24th of October to assess the implementation of the recommendation of the EU Election Observation Mission to the 23rd presidential elections and progress towards electoral reforms. During the last 2 weeks, the mission has met a wide range of Maldivian electoral stakeholders, including the government, the Election Commission of Maldives, the National Human Rights Commission, the Anti-Corruption Commission, key political parties and civil society organizations. Today, the mission organized a roundtable of electoral stakeholders where participants had the opportunity to discuss the implementation of the EU mission recommendations. I presented the final report of the electoral mission in January 24th, which has offered 20 recommendations conducive to bring the electoral legal framework in line with international and regional legal standards. 7 recommendations have been identified as being of priority related to the legal framework: the misuse of state resources, the media and online fact-checking, affirmative action to ensure women's participation in political life, civic and voter education, and electoral procedures. Only one of these recommendations has been implemented. The 5th Amendment to the Electoral General Act introduced clear provisions ensuring that the voter's intention expressed on the ballot paper is respected. None of the other recommendations has been yet implemented in full. In 3 areas, the implementation of the recommendation is ongoing, and the implementation of 3 other recommendations is too early to be assessed. Positively, there are new initiatives for civic and voter education at the Electoral Commission of Maldives, and a draft data protection bill is under discussion. Unfortunately, none of the other 13 recommendations have been addressed, despite the activism of the executive and of the People May List to initiate a broad range of legislative amendments and new bills. Regrettably, none of these address key recommendations offered by the EU on 23rd. Political finance oversight has diminished, and state-owned enterprises have grown in number and influence while the country is in a dire financial situation. The government assured me that they are aware of the problem and they are already reducing personnel in oversized enterprises. No measure has been undertaken to implement the law and effectively combat vote buying. Renewed efforts should be undertaken in these areas. Many of our interlocutors have pointed to the erosion of democratic standards and have conveyed concern about the weakening of institutional check and balances and increased control of the executive over key institutions and the judiciary. A number of wide-ranging legal changes, including constitutional changes, has been undertaken in a hasty manner without broad consultations. These recent legal changes reshape in particular the centralized governance and the media environment. The freedom of the media is particularly linked to the electoral processes. The introduction of the 25th Media and Broadcasting Act has drawn particular criticism. The new legal framework regulating the media must be applied in full respect of human rights commitments, independence of the media, pluralism, and the right to access information as cornerstones of democracy and of credible elections. I want to remind that fundamental rights like the freedom of expression and the freedom of assembly, also intrinsically embedded in elections, need to be safeguarded under any circumstances while conducting legal reforms. The separation of powers and independence of institutions also must be upheld. Civic and voter education should be continued with broad consultation, including civil society and international development partners, and engage in particular the younger generation in the political process. Special emphasis should be placed on enhancing participation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities, as inclusion strengthens electoral legitimacy. Additionally, affirmative action measures should be considered to ensure the nomination of women to leadership positions, including to the independent bodies like the Election Commission. There has never been a woman member of the Commission. Future appointments could provide an opportunity to address this shortcoming. The implementation of the recommendation would greatly enhance transparency, accountability, and inclusive participation in the electoral process. These 3 years remain until the next presidential election, but action is required now to show political will to conduct reforms and avoid any democratic backsliding. The mission will provide in some weeks a final report about the implementation of these recommendations. The European Union, talking on behalf of the Embassy also, stands ready to continue support for multi-party democracy and good governance in the Maldives in consultation with national stakeholders. Ambassador Moreno is taking care of the continuous relation of the European Union and the presence of the European Union in the Maldives public life. Thank you all.
Well, thank you very much to the Chief of Mission for his remarks. We are now opening for questions and answers to the present journalists. If you'd like to raise a question, please present yourself and the media you're working for. For the media representatives in the room, now is the opportunity to raise questions to the Chief of Mission.
For anybody in the room. there is a journalist.
Please present yourself and your media.
I'm Ralph from SMS. So you have said that the government has, Election Commission has implemented one recommendation that you want the election. So do you think the government and the Election Commission is working on implementing the other recommendations? What do you think?
Well, as I said in my first speech, there is one important message that has been taken is, as you notice in the presidential election, the mission and the media, we notice an enormous amount of invalid votes, reflecting there is a problem in some part of the procedure. And we raised the issue in our report, and then the authorities at the Election Commission takes the issue, and they provided the legal framework in the Electoral Act to ensure that, let's say, beside any formality about the size of the signal, the color of the signal, to protect the will expressed by the voter. And if the intention of the voter is clear, there is no discussion. And we notice with content that in the parliamentary elections, the percentage of invalid votes reduces dramatically. That means satisfaction. For the rest, there are other measures, other recommendations. We have to wait because this is not today is not the right time. There are approaching the elections. We have to see, and there are others in the pipeline. For example, the data protections and others. Meaning, yes, it's true. Only one has been fully addressed. There are 6 in which there are some circumstances to let's say to take into account, but there are other 13 not having been addressed. And my message to the government and to the authorities has been a political one. You have the means, you have the presidency, you have the majority of the parliament, and you have time. Meaning, this is the opportunity to offer to your country a good improvement, leaving behind some old habits very entrenched in the political culture of the country. What we said about the problems around both buying and state-owned enterprises, I learned from the opposition then, now the ruling party. And for that reason, to me, it has been very easy to convey it, because my current preoccupations were the preoccupation of the then opposition party and now the ruling party. Meaning, somebody has to break the circle. If not, we are going again, using the state-owned enterprises, using the whole habits. Somebody has to break this circle, vicious circle. And then what I convey to the Minister of Foreign Affairs is, you have the means, you have time, you have an enormous majority in the parliament, then try to offer to the country a thing for approach the country to be a mature democracy, letting behind many old habits that I know for sure are very entrenched in the political culture of the country, as I said, but somebody had to overcome these old habits, and I think the current government has the means to do it.
Thank you very much, Nacho. We open the floor to further questions from the present media. If there are no further questions at this stage, we thank you very much for your kind attention and are looking forward to continue the conversation over the available snacks. Thank you very much.
Allow me a final word. I have been linked to this country for the last couple of years. To be a chief of service, as I was during the last presidential elections, and to be deeply introduced in the public life of the country, inevitably create bonds and feelings. And this is a country it's accompanying me in my future endeavors, because I know for other occasions when you have been so close to the public life of a country. In the future, when I'm going to listen Maldives in a TV, immediately I'm trying to be connected, because inevitably, luckily to me, this is a country now very attached to myself. I think this country deserves to continue maturing the democracy. You are not only a beautiful country, you are a very intriguing country in some ways, because you have enormous geography with a tiny population, with a lot of challenges. This geography is not easy to manage from the political point of view, but you have and you enjoy a very important geopolitical position, and this is an asset you have to take into account in an international presence that I remind to the current Foreign Affairs Minister, always has been, at least from Nassid's presidency, the international presence of Maldives has been well above, let's say, the density of the country. And this is an asset for the country, and this is an asset you have to take care of, because this position well earned is a big advantage in this world, and that's an heritage of your past administration that the country has to take care of and has to use wisely. All my love to this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nacho. Thanks to the audience.